Hi there, this is Rick Weisberg with Oasis Flight Time Benches. I'd like to introduce you to my latest product. I've been making the flight time benches for over 30 years, started in the late 80s. Sold an awful lot of them over the years. Haven't really come out with a major product in a while. I've added a few little accessory items in the last few years, but this is my first major product I've come out probably within the last 10 years. I got into dubbing brushes a few months back with my old buddy, the mad scientist from Plier Dungeon. He and I go back a long time. He actually built my website for my flight time benches over 25 years ago, close to 30 years ago, that I still use to this day. It looks the same as it did when he built it. I've done some upgrading to it, but its outward look is still the same. And he was telling me about these dubbing brushes that he was making, so I bought some from him, and I've used them on some pretty cool streamer flies, and I bought some more from him, and I just started getting into looking into the internet more and more about dubbing brushes and what's out there, what people are using, what equipment they're using to make them, what kind of dubbing brushes, what they're using with their dubbing brushes, how they're making their flies, and I thought, well, this is like a whole nother subculture to flight time, is getting involved with making dubbing brushes. So, and looking at what other people were using, a lot of guys are making their own homemade units, and they work okay. They're very inexpensive, and that's great. And I saw some that were a little bit more advanced, and definitely some time and thought had gone into the design and the making of some of those. But I just thought, with my experience and background in woodworking, I think I can come up with something just a little different. It's got some neat features, and this is what I've come up with. Basically, it's based around a sealed ball bearing, which is on the back side of this support right here, that this half-inch dowel goes through. And I've got it epoxied in, so it's never going to slip, it's never going to come out. It should be in there forever. And I think this is going to last many, many years with such light usage. It should last a long, long time. The other major concept, after talking with the mad scientist, is I didn't want anything in the way of the dubbing brush when it was spinning, because for these big dubbing brushes, you want that to spin freely in the air. You don't want it hitting against part of your table. So I came up with the idea on removing the removable table, and I took it one step further. On my flight time benches, some of my premium mid-price benches, I include a background card that is dark on one side and light on the other, and it really helps with seeing detail and with eye strain when you're working with those background cards. So with this, I've got it stained a dark walnut on one side, and I've got it stained, it's not stained at all. This is the natural maple color on the back side. It's a Baltic birch plywood. It's a very stable wood, high quality plywood. There's looks like about 5 layers of veneer in here that makes this up. So it's a good quality wood. But the whole idea with the contrasting is that when you're using a light colored material to make a dubbing brush, you want to use the dark side, so you have a good contrast between your material and the surface it's setting on. So you can see areas that are thin or areas that are thick a little easier than using a background that's similar in color to the material that you are using. So if you're using a dark color material, just the opposite, use the light colored side. Once again, you'll be able to see your thin areas and your heavy areas to make that dubbing brush as uniform as possible when you're laying down all your material. And then it's held in with these 2 slots here. I put these slots as far apart as I could to create that as wide a distance as possible when this is spinning. If you're doing a maximum length brush, which from here to here is about 17 inches, some of that brush is going to hit this when it's spinning, but I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. I think your brush will still come out fine, but you want as much of that brush as possible out in the open, so it's not getting tangled up with itself when you're brushing. I've already talked about the ball bearing here on the side. Like I said, I had the idea of making a 2-speed manual. In talking with the mad scientist, he doesn't like motorized dubbing brush machines. He thinks they go too fast and you lose control of what's happening with your dubbing brush. You want to kind of keep an eye on things as it's twisting up. so that things don't get out of whack and everything gets bundled up with itself. So for the slowest and most control, you would stroke this wheel like this. And you can see that black piece of electrical tape I put on there, get an idea on how fast it's spinning. When you're ready to kick it up into high gear, you come over here and grab this 1/2-inch oak dowel between your thumb and 2 fingers, and you can really get it going a lot faster with no electrical motor. So, and then you'll notice that when I let go of it, the idea with this 5-inch wheel here, it adds weight for a kinetic energy. So when you in between your strokes, it continues to spin. It helps that wheel to continue to spin in between your strokes with your fingers or with your hand on the top of the wheel. Over here on this side, I've got a piece of 3-inch oak dowel going through this support here, that as the wire is twisting up, it gets shorter and shorter. You have to have a way to compensate for that. So the spring keeps tension on that wire while this can move in, and that can move in a good 5/8 of an inch. I don't think you're ever going to need it to move in that far. If you'll notice, I've got a rubber washer on the back side of this, a fender washer. The idea with that is, once you start spinning it up at this end, that rubber washer helps this from not spinning. It gives it some friction there, which I've never seen it spin, even when it's tight. Even when this starts to pull out, this does not spin in here. But you can, if you want to, when you're spinning with your right hand on the wheel going this way, if you want to counterspin this one at the same time, you're tightening up this end of the brush a little sooner, a little quicker, because as you all know, if you've done some dubbing brushes, this end tightens up first, and gradually the wraps get more and more tighter over here on this end last. So, I mean, it's a slow process. It's not going to spin freely, but you do have this option of counter spinning this wheel to tighten up this end of the brush once you start spinning the brush. This is a device I use on all my flight time benches. I call this my hackle plier hanger. Hackle pliers don't fit in holes very well, but they hang very nicely. So I thought this would be a quick, easy addition to the bench that would help hold my scissors. I can hang those from this. I can hang my wire cutter from it. I've got my little brush here. I put in a little eye bolt here on the end of it, so I can hang that from the tool holder. Kind of keeps my tools off here to the side. Over here on this end of the bench, you'll see a couple brass rods. Those are for storing extra spools of wire, just your standard thread spool wires. Each one will hold 2 spools, so you can hold 4 different spools of wire, different gauges, if you'd like. Over here on this side, I've got a 1-inch hole and an 1 1/4 hole. The 1 1/4 hole is for your larger dubbing waxes. The inch hole is for your smaller dubbing waxes. Bring this back around. And then I've also included a ruler here. This is just a standard 12-inch school ruler you all used back in elementary school. But I've put in a couple stops on both sides of it. So whether you're right-handed or left-handed, you have something that you can put your material up against while you're cutting it. And I'll show you here what I mean. So I've got a piece of Congo hair here. I just whack off a bit of this. Let me get my big scissors out here. So if I cut a hank of this off of here, I noticed that when I was trying to cut this in midair, it was kind of hard looking here and looking here at the same time, so my material didn't move around. With this, I can just slide it up against that block. I know it's there, it can stay there. I come with my scissors, and I'll cut here at the 2-inch mark, so on the number 10, and I'll just do that again. Bring my scissors in here. Whack off a 2-inch hunk of that material. Come in again. So I get consistent lengths of material while I'm building my dubbing brush. So now I want to show you exactly how you go about using this to load up your wire before you do your brush. So you set your table in here like this. I've got these large inserts here just to kind of get so it's handy to get your fingers in here to attach the wire. I'll use this spool here that's already been opened. So the first thing I do is I start the wire on this end, on the spinning end. I'll grab the end of the wire here, and I'll just make a little loop around that hook, hold both ends, spin it, and I'm ready to go. I noticed some guys, they take that butt end, and with both their fingers, they're trying to twist the wire around the long running wire, trying to get it all twisted up. This is just so much faster and easier. Just make a little loop, hold it, give it a couple spins, it spins around it, and you're ready to go. Then I unwind my wire over this end. With this hook over here, I like seeing the opening of this hook pointing down this way. So then I bring my wire under here like this, under that hook, and then I've got two rubber washers right here. The back one is flat. The front one is a beveled washer with a screw going through it. So I bring my wire between that crack, between the flat washer and the beveled washer, and I just pull down on it, and it pushes that wire down in that crack between those two washers, and those rubber washers hold that in place and keeps this wire nice and tight while I load up my material. And then to hold this spool, I just make sure I put that wire in the cut in the spool holder there, put that on that piece of brass there, and that holds my spool temporarily while I'm loading up my table with material. After I get all my material all loaded up and everything, I'm ready to go. I've got my wax on my bottom wire. I pull this up, pull it out between the two rubber washers, run it down to this end. I unhook it there. I take my wax, I wax it all up the wire. I put my wire on this hook here. I hold this taunt and push down, spin it, and I'm done. I take my wire cutter. It's all wrapped around that hook now. Cut it off. Now I'm ready to go to town. So at this point, you can remove the table. If you've got wax on your wire, the material is going to stay between those wires as you remove this table. Get it out of the way. Start doing some slow spins at first, watching how the material, what's happening to your materials as you're spinning it up. When you're ready to kick it into high gear, grab it right here and really start spinning and going to town with it. Okay? And then, like I said before, if you want, some of you guys are just, you want to use the electric motor, you just got to get a drill with a 1/2 inch chuck. This is a very loved Makita cordless drill I've had for many years. I just put it on there, tighten it up. I can really go to town. Now you can start to see this start to pull out. Okay, it's pulled out probably 1/4, 3/8 of an inch out from the support. So when you go to brush it up, I just squeeze it here between your thumb and finger, and that's going to put more tension on this. So as you can see, I've got, I think it's an A sharp, I believe. Without that, it's a E flat. I don't know. But anyway, you can create more tension right here by squeezing this right here while you're brushing up your brush. Then when you're all done and you're ready to remove this, you don't really need to cut it from either of the hooks. What I do is I make this really loose. I push in on this. I take the butt of this wire. I just slide it off that hook. Slide this one off this hook. I don't have to cut the wire. You just push in on this. Gives us some slack so you can slide the brush off of your dubbing brush machine. So anyway, this is my idea of a dubbing brush table. I think I came up with some pretty cool ideas. Oh, one thing I didn't show is it looks like I didn't show you was the bodkin holder. So on all my fly tying tables, I have a foam insert in my table, which this has. So it's just a handy place to stick your bodkin right here so it's always at the ready. When you're ready to pick out your brush, just stick it back in there. You'll never lose it on your table under tons of stuff. I'm sure as we make these stuff, it just gets loaded with crap everywhere, and it's hard sometimes finding things. That's why it's nice kind of be able to put things where you know they are, and it'll make you a little bit more efficient in your work on your fly tying bench. So thanks for listening and watching. I hope to have this up on my website here soon. I've got a bunch of them all ready to go. I spent a month making the first batch of about 40 of them. And I've got about 20 of those put together, ready to ship out. The other 20 are I just need assembling, and then they'll be ready too. So I hope to hear from you soon, and happy flight time. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.